It's still drizzling.
It's crazy. So. Global warming.
Yeah, right?
Cheers.
Things are wild.
Yeah. So, how's your 2020 experience been so far in your body as a woman?
That's a really interesting question. Wow. It has been a combination of anxiety and dissociation.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and moments of beauty and joy and, loving the moment. But I'd say for the past 5 months, 6 months, it's been, I'm anxious or I'm just going to dissociate because this is just a little overwhelming.
Yeah. And dissociation can look like so many things.
Yeah. For me, it's, how do I dissociate? I don't know. I just kind of just stop thinking, check out, and tool about in my garden.
Yeah. I mean, at least you're climbing into the dirt.
Yeah, that's true.
That's happening. So
what about,
had,
go
ahead.
I would say, what about you? What has your 2020 experience in your body as a woman been like?
Oh my God. Well, same. And I was thinking about, so last night I came home from work and my work's been really busy now. And I came home from working on all these bodies. And I've noticed that my first desire is to eat junk food and watch Netflix, which I'm not above admitting that that's a thing that happens. And that's a thing that we crave when we have been smacked with so many other people's things. And so I came home last night. It was a night when my boyfriend actually just wasn't here. And I was like naked and just laying there and eating junk food. And I was like, this actually feels really good. And sometimes I think we forget that we have to, if we're going to put ourselves in a place where we're not dissociating, but if we're going to put ourselves in a place where we like in something that feels really kind of unhealthy, then what's the good way to deal with that is to like actually sink into it and feel the pleasure that comes from it. Like if it's something that's unhealthy to do all the time, but in moderation, it's okay. Can we just like find the pleasure in it? Because it was very pleasurable to just lay naked and watch some stupid Netflix and eat pop chips.
Oh, yes. I love it. I will admit I've gone through several Netflix series in these past few months. Just
right?
like,
I mean,
yeah.
It's no one's perfect in 2020.
No, self-care is a very subjective thing at this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we touched base ahead of time and talked a little bit about discussing some of the things that people don't want to discuss, like codependency. And I know you're talking about that all the time, and so am I. So
yeah, I feel like it's a really important thing to bring up because especially for, I'm going to say women, especially for women, it's a tendency that I feel like is very normalized, not necessarily normal, but it's just normalized to be and experience relationships in a codependent way. And it leads to a whole host of psycho-emotional and physical problems that I have found. So I'm down to dive in.
Yeah. So when I talk about codependency, I'm usually talking about my little niche, which is endometriosis and pelvic pain. And I always like to describe it as how, our endometrial, or what appears to be endometrial tissue, grows up and out, right, of the pelvic cavity into and attaches on different organs and causes all this pain. And when I think about that, when I really sit with that, my gut feeling is that, it's actually the body's physical going up, moving up and out and attaching to things that where it shouldn't be. And it's like, it's actually like the physical embodiment of a codependent reaction.
Wow.
And I see you talking about codependency a lot. And I'm always like, yes, because no one's talking about, people talk about codependency, but they don't talk about how it shows up in the body. Right. And it shows up for you've talked about how it shows up with the cervix, right?
Yes, in my work with cervical dysplasia, my little niche being HPV, cervical dysplasia, abnormal pap smears, that the underlying energetic diagnosis that I have found is codependent behaviors, mainly dealing with sexual behaviors. So codependency in sex leading to premature penetration, maybe not giving enough time for the body to be fully aroused for penetration to safely occur, and the cervix actually being damaged or hit the face of the cervix, the cells of the cervix being harmed. Because when, if we're just letting our partner do what they may, if they're penetrating us, without us actually checking in with our body and our needs and our desires and like what's right for me and how can I use my voice to speak that, then damage can happen to the inner vagina. And so, yeah, it's a big thing. I love your connection of endometriosis and codependency. And literally it's like us reaching out for something outside of ourselves. That just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's something, and I don't even really remember exactly when it came to me, but I was like, because I had dealt with endometriosis in the past, and I was like, for me, it was a codependency, because, there's a few different types. There's like a controlling, and then there's, being a people pleaser. All of these things are actually actions of controlling. And for me, I was a people pleaser to the extent that I was kind of mothering other people. And what was really interesting is that when I, found out that I had endometriosis and started to work with it, I was actually, the thing that changed everything for me was working on the patterns of behavior that I was, throwing out into the world. And I still, to this day, obviously, I worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. the other day and came home and ate junk food. And I was like, well, why did that happen? Well, it's because I was in this external space. I wasn't in my own body, taking care of my own energy. But when it comes to endo in particular, we're talking about the uterus, and the uterus is that mothering energy. And so a lot of us are, we have this ingrained idea. We're indoctrinated from early girlhood that we need to take care of others, and that's our place in the world.
Yep.
So it's really interesting, that, a codependent behavior will allow someone to penetrate you, and their energy will actually penetrate you if you're open to just allowing anyone in, because that is something that you sense will be helpful for them. Like, I must make myself totally available. And anyway, but with the uterus, it was really interesting to me to make the connection that the uterus is mothering. That's a mothering energy. So, that's something that we're tapping into, or not, either we're not present with, or, it's gone crazy. It's really interesting.
Wow. I, thinking about this, and then for me, just also thinking about, from my perspective, there's just been this huge upswell of reproductive health concerns, or at least maybe we're just talking about it more. I don't know. It just seems like in the last 10 years, there's been more and more women in my life and in my sphere that just have all these reproductive health issues, whether it's endometriosis or cervical dysplasia or PCOS or uterine fibroids or whatnot. And I'm just wondering, if we look at, I'm not asking us to do this now, but if we look at all of these different conditions, like how can codependency be tied into the energetics of each of these things? Because it seems to me that codependency is a very, it's like the thread that weaves it all together.
Yeah.
In my mind, like pelvic health conditions, whatever they are, codependency kind of go hand in hand.
Well, then too, we are codependently looking to our medical providers, who we've been told are the gods of all gods, and we have to listen to them and take their advice, only their advice, and not listen to our own bodies. And I'm a victim of Guardasil and all of those things. Yep. And I know that to me, if I had been more in my body and more apt to experience my intuition and understand what I actually needed from a young age, then I probably wouldn't have done that. And that wouldn't have led to all the fallout from that and all the other things that I've done, including letting people inside of me that shouldn't be inside of me.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you, like, I probably 90% of my one-on-one clients are people who I have consults with. The story of like, oh, I don't want to upset the doctor. I don't want the doctor to be mad at me. I don't want to make them feel bad. Oh, they're just trying to do their job. And I'm like, hey, this is your body. Like, no, let's just cut that codependent need to please them and make their experience a primary focus.
Mm-hmm.
Gynecological experiences, let's turn that around. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the Western medical doctrine, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a little,
Ideology.
yeah, a little side note. They wear a white coat, like the AMAs had doctors wear white coats to actually simulate the priesthood, to have them
No, really.
simulate like looking like a priest garb, or like the Pope. The Pope wears a long white robe.
Gross.
That's why they wear a white coat. It has no other reason other than to like signify
Really?
God. Yes,
So
it is.
I is associated it with cleanliness or something, but I
Mm,
guess the same thing, right? That's probably why the Pope wears white or whatever.
right.
Clean.
Yeah,
Doesn't.
did some research about the history of the AMA, and that was a legitimate thing. They wanted their certified doctors to have like the same aura as the clergy. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh wait, did you put that in your book? I may have read it in your book. I read your book a while back.
Aw, I'm not sure. I might have found that afterwards. But thanks for reading my book.
It was cute. I loved it.
Thank you.
It was like a nice read, and I was like, and I could feel your energy through it, and you were just like so impassioned, and I was like, oh, I love Denell. I remember when you came out with it, I was like, I gotta get this book. I'm gonna get this book
Oh,
just to have
you.
in my library.
Oh, yay! That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll put it in the show notes too, if anyone wants to buy it.
Cool. Yeah. Can I give like a short 20-second
please.
plug? Okay. It's called Informed, Aware, Empowered, a Self-Guided Journey to Clear PAPS. And it's all about HPV, cervical dysplasia, and how to, I don't even like to say reverse abnormal pap smears. I'm changing my language because you're not really like reversing anything. You're actually just like moving forward and beyond having this be a condition or an issue in your life. So,
yeah. And I can say it's a great and passionate read, and you can hear Denell's voice through it, and I love it.
Oh, thanks. Oh, wow.
But yeah, I remember, because I think you put like a section in there about the history. You're always on about the history of gynecology, which has a sordid history. I don't know if, I'm assuming you read the book. I can't even remember what it's called. The History of Gynecology, Racism, Sexism.
Oh, it's not medical apartheid.
No, it's the other one. But
yes, I'm forgetting it too. By Dr.
It's got a simple title, but I've been slowly listening to it and on Audible, and it is just like I have to listen to it at like in intervals because it's so heartbreaking.
Yes, I had to.
Women, to Black women especially, it's just heartbreaking. So slow intervals, but yeah, it's definitely worth. I think every woman needs to know the history of gynecology. It's an important one.
Right. Well, so I am a historian by nature. Like I got my bachelor's in history. I was like really like wanted to be on the history. Really?
Art history technically, but I was a big history nerd. Yeah.
Yeah. I like used to fantasize about being on the History Channel when that was still a thing. Really? I love that. Yeah. I just find that learning the history of things really informs us about like why things are the way they are. And for me, it's helped me question things because I'm like, wait, this isn't how it has always been, like at least in terms of modern gynecology or Western gynecology. It's really only like 150 years old, 160 years old. So it's like for me and my own journey and my teachings and how I work with women is like, let's think about how things have been done like for most of humanity and not just within the last 160 years.
Yeah, and then to consider the reasons why in the last 160 years that things have been done the way that they are done. And for the most part, that is to coerce women into a certain camp, right?
Yes.
It's been created in a certain way. And it's actually, there's another book now I'm thinking, For Her Own Good. It's a good read. The history of the experts' advice to women in the 20th century.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Writing it down.
I know we're just like spouting off books this whole episode. But it's just really about why the experts were giving advice to women in the way that they were. And to parse it out, I'm sure that there are so many reasons that we can look at. But to look at the advice that has been given to women medically and the way that women have been put into these groups medically over the course of the last century and a half has just been, it's phenomenal. the way that men were looking at women and considering that, you know, that women were so much less than, that their brains didn't even really work. It was all about the uterus. The uterus just, you know, take out the uterus if she's upset, you know. Like, there's so much.
Oh my gosh, is this book going to make me even more upset about
Maybe.
Western gynecology?
It's really worth
Wow.
reading. I actually
Yeah.
sped through it in a weekend, which is unusual for a nonfiction book for me. But yeah, the expert's advice to women, it's really about, you know, how it's not even just doctors, not even just gynecologists.
Right.
It's there was a whole group of people that were tasked with the task to create for women home economics. You know, like home ec is something that was created to keep women busy and away from working jobs. It's like there's so much to unpack there. There's so much to unpack.
There's so much to unpack, and I feel like it's all coming out for us to unpack in our pelvises now.
Exactly.
Like,
And we've inherited the exact patterns that were created and installed in our mothers and our grandmothers.
Yes.
Since the beginning of, quote, the expert's advice to women. And so now we're trying to unpack all of that. And it's like, I think that's one reason why we're seeing so many issues.
Yeah. I agree that we're seeing so many issues because I think, like, for the first time ever in modern history, like, we have the time and space and wherewithal and information to actually unpack it, like to say, like, oh, hey, this actually is not correct. This is not how we are supposed to live on planet Earth in this way, in these bodies, in these female bodies. And it's time to look at it.
Time to unwind it. And it doesn't take, you know, it takes a long time to do.
I know. In a way, I'm a little jealous of all the women who are finding this information at like 18, 19, 20, because I'm like, oh my God, you're so lucky. Like, you have Instagram now to find all these accounts, because I had to wait till I was like, I don't know, 26, you know?
Yeah. Like after you've already made all the mistakes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So if you're younger than 25 listening to this, know that you have an amazing head start.
Oh, I know. I want to say 50% of, not 50, 40% of the people I see hands-on are really young women.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And it is amazing because it's, you know, what's really amazing is helping them come off birth control and putting them on herbs to regulate their periods and having them come back to me and say, I'm so excited. I figured out that, like, during my luteal phase, this happens or that happens. And I'm like, this is so great. You know, I didn't even know about any of this until I went to medical school.
Right. Oh my gosh. That's incredible. How old are these young women?
Well, I want to say most of them, there's a good handful of them that are like 23, 24, 25.
Oh, yay.
You know, like 22, some of them. It's so nice to be like, yes, girl power.
Totally. Wow. Do you find that, like, kind of looping back to where we started, do you find that they, these women, these young women that you're working with, that they experience codependency as much as, say, like us people in our 30s?
I want to say that it's a lot easier for them to come to the realization that they don't need to be in those patterns. They seem to, I mean, this is just based on, you know, observation, but I feel like they seem to learn and absorb a lot quicker because the rest of us have been digging it into a rut in our brains for however many more decades. And the older people, I find I have more trouble with to really, like, back it up all the way to the end. And I wonder if that's because they just carry a lot more traumatic experiences with them, and it's you know, it's the longer that you're operating on these patterns, the more likely that you are to hold them and repeat them. And so that repetition can be really hard to undo. So I want to say the younger people are a little bit more pliable in terms of, you know, how easily they are to wake up to their bodies.
I love that. That's so exciting to me. Wow. Yeah. like I think about the even younger generations. I have two nieces, they're 12 and 10, and the 12-year-old in particular, I'm like witnessing before my very eyes her shutting down from her body, like as she's coming into puberty, like in that like transition period, like no, besides me, nobody in her life really supports like the female experience or, wants to talk about it. And yeah, she also got her first round of Gardasil like a month and or two. I
No.
like freaked out. I straight freaked out. But it's been really difficult to watch these younger girls like with like parents who just aren't aware at all, like watching the shell come around
And
their
with
body.
the Gardasil thing too, we should probably explain why we're so anti-Gardasil,
Okay.
first of all. But with that too, you're also telling them that they can't trust their bodies or they can't trust their choices.
Right.
It's like
Okay.
internalizing this idea that you can't trust your choice and your sexuality, and that is so damaging.
Yes, that is actually a really good point. I mean, I don't know why a 12-year-old needs a vaccine for a sexually transmitted infection anyway. I'm like, she's 12 or 10, and her sister's 10. Yeah, and just to kind of go with what you said we should do, talk about
Yeah.
why I'm so against Gardasil. Well, I mean, that is like a very deep conversation to have. One book I recommend for anybody who really wants to know the nitty-gritty, dirty details of Merck and the development of the HPV vaccine, to read the book HPV Vaccine on Trial. It was written by three lawyers. Or three judges, three lawyers. I can't remember if they're judges or lawyers, but basically exposing the very nefarious process in which Gardasil was fast-tracked, how they falsified information to back the development of the vaccine, how the Gates Foundation did horrific illegal human trials in India, leading to like the death as well as forced sterilization of thousands of young women in India and in several African countries. Not to mention just like they've like even changed things in the trials to show a certain effect when in fact they literally changed the numbers so that they could fast track this vaccine onto the market. And I mean, it's so deep. And also it is proven to be less efficacious, meaning it's less effective than the placebo effect. So you're actually more likely to die from complications from Gardasil than from cervical cancer. Like it doesn't make sense. So anyway, I am like really anti this specific vaccine. I don't necessarily want to go into like the whole vaccine conversation, but this one in particular, I'm like, it sterilizes young women and now men. I mean, they're giving them to young boys, and it's proven to not be effective. And Maggie, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who had Gardasil vaccine, still contracted HPV, and still like was on the track to cervical cancer. Like,
well, I'll tell you real quick what happened to me.
Please, I'm curious.
This pisses me off to no end still. I was probably, I was like 23 when I was talked into it, and I had already been diagnosed with HPV. And they said, oh, you need the HPV shot. And I said, well, why do I need this if I've already had the dysplasia and had it removed? Like what, and I was so, I didn't know. I wasn't doing any of this work then. I wasn't in touch with my body. I was so distracted by somebody in a white coat telling me that this is what I needed that I was like, okay, I guess I'll do this. And I don't think I ever finished. I mean, it's so long ago that I don't remember what really happened, but I don't think I ever finished the round because 3 shots.
Three.
The first, I think I got the first 2. Is it 3 now? Or is it?
I think it's 2. It used to be 3. Like there's Gardasil 1 and Gardasil, or there's Gardasil and Gardasil 9, and the 9.
All right.
I think
So this was nearly 15 years ago. So I was, I got, I think the first shot And I was like, that didn't feel right in my body. And then I went to get the other one, but I got the next one too late, and they yelled at me. Like, I came into the doctor's office and they were like, you were supposed to be here months ago. And I was like, sorry, I didn't know. And they gave me the shot anyway. And then after that, I was supposed to get a third, but I didn't go because so when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I had Lyme disease,
Oh.
and it brought back my Lyme disease symptoms. Like, as soon as I had the second shot, I started to feel joint pain again. I started to have all of the symptoms of Lyme. And then I went to get tested for Lyme, and they were like, you don't have this in your body. But that's how my body was reacting. And I just kind of like checked out of like that whole experience. I was like, that was weird. I didn't really internalize it until way later down the road when I was like, oh my God, that thing happened to me. Like, that was a vaccine injury.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'm so sorry that happened to you. When I was diagnosed with HPV, they're like, you need the HPV vaccine. I'm like, why? But they never, they never explained it to me. I think I'm a Taurus rising in my astrology, so I get a little bullheaded. And I think I was just like, no, you're not telling me, so I'm not going to get it. So,
Were you older?
no, I was 19.
You were 19. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was just kind of so checked out that I was uninformed,
Right. I could have been like the little angel in my ear being like, don't do
Probably.
this. Like,
Good for you.
this is going to be your life path pretty soon. Oh, wow. Do you feel like you have any like residual injury symptoms? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. So I was tested for Lyme. They said, you don't have this. And then everything kind of went away. And I went through the endometriosis thing could have been connected too, because that didn't happen until I was 25. So that was 2 years later. I started getting that, or not 2 years later, maybe a year later. And it was all around the same time. So it's very murky. And it's very murky as to like what caused what, because I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
And I know that it was just a whole host of things. It was all kinds. It was trauma. It was like sexual, like I was raped, and then I was in college, and then I was, I had all the codependency issues, and I was in bad relationship, and it was just one thing after the other. So I'm not even really sure what the biggest puzzle piece was to the storm, but it really, I think, started me on a path of just saying, no, actually, I really don't want this anymore. And, I really don't want to be on birth control anymore. And, if I say no, it's okay. Like, my body's not going to fall apart if I don't listen to these people.
Right. I'm not going to just like evaporate and die or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of what they were telling me. Like, you're just gonna, everything's going to be bad if you don't do what we tell you to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have medical bullying and shaming experiences too. It's horrible. Some of the stories that my clients bring to me, I literally, like, my mouth drops with what is being said to women behind closed doors, like while they're in stirrups or, naked in the little paper gown.
Really?
It's
like sexual things, or
no, just like a shaming about their body. Like I had one client who had several procedures on her cervix already. So her cervix had scar tissue. The doctor was like, oh, you have a weird, funny looking cervix. Like while he's like looking, it was a man, like, oh, it's weird looking. And she's like, she immediately just like,
yeah, because no one knows what the fuck that means. And also, like, when you make any mention of how a woman's body looks or presents, she's going to internalize it in some way. I mean,
totally.
That's terrible. And these women are young, and they're also, the kind of porn culture that women are growing up with, that kids are growing up with now, is so different from even what we had, that I think it's causing a kind of, dysphoria and issues that we didn't even really recognize that maybe we had and grew out of. But I think it's becoming even more of an issue, and women's bodies and the way that they feel about their bodies is becoming like, there's a lot there that we don't even really understand, because it really wasn't our experience.
Wow, that's so mind-boggling to me too, because I remember being younger and like the porn culture and it being an issue then, and now we're in our 30s, and now it's just like, wow, okay, there is like a whole other generation of like a deepened, toxic, weird alternative sexual education that's happening via
Mm-hmm.
porn, with like, especially
Yeah.
with cell phones and like the availability of pornography. It's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's, I feel like we're bouncing from topic to topic. There's so many things we could talk about.
I know. It's exciting. Honestly, I don't have a lot of people to talk about this sort of stuff with.
I know. That's why I invite people to talk about it here, because I know that there are so many things that can be misinterpreted, or like people don't really know how to internalize these messages.
Right.
I mean, going back to codependency, it's kind of like, if you're not actually bringing in the, if you're only soaking in messages for so long that tell you need to present in a certain way to the outside world, then it's really hard to even receive messages like this. Like,
Right.
you can be with your body, you can learn to feel and trust your intuition through your pelvic floor, through your cervix. Like, you can actually do these things. This is your birthright, in fact. And it's so, like, I've had people be like, well, I'm so mind blown that I can't even like look at your content. I have to come back to it. I've actually had people say, like, your content really confused me and almost infuriated me, and then I had to come back to it. Like,
Wow.
okay.
Wow. I'm sure there's grief there, grief
Yeah.
around like however old they might be, like, wow, I lived 38 years of my life being like putting all of my energy outside of myself and listening to these people and taking all this advice and doing what I thought was right and being the good girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think too, it gets, it'll be interpreted sometimes as shaming,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if
Right.
you've run into before, but I've definitely been accused of being a shaming person. And I'm like, it's not really about you being a bad person for having made choices. I just told everyone that I sat and watched Netflix and ate junk food all night the other night. I mean, I'm not infallible, and no one's perfect. I also, I fell for the Gardasil shot after being diagnosed with HPV. Like, that's something that, yeah, there's plenty of I have feelings about that, but it doesn't mean that I can't look back at it and say, now I'm going to make different decisions.
Right.
So it's not really a shame about who I am, but yeah,
Right.
it's hard when people internalize these things as a commentary on who they are as a person, when in fact it's really just, hey, these are better choices that you could make.
Right. Well, and just us speaking out about the other choices, the other options. When I was listening to you share that just now, I was thinking that that is also actually a symptom of codependency, of believing wholeheartedly what has already been told to you and not being open to other perspectives or other opinions, just like kind of like having blinders on. Um, and just not coming into your own inner knowing about what could be right or what could be different about what has been shared to you. That's not really something that like has been written down, like this is a codependent behavior, but I'm thinking about it right now just in my clients and in my own personal life, of when there's been like cognitive dissonance, or I felt like somebody's speaking out about something that related to what I have experienced in my life, as taking it personally, instead of recognizing like, oh, there's a separation between them and their experience and what they're talking about, and my personal experience is not personal, actually.
Yeah,
I hope that made sense.
it does. Yeah. And it's also not, I mean, it's also not bad to come to the conclusion that you don't agree with somebody. Like, if I say, this is my opinion about codependency, if you really sit and think about it and give it a few minutes of thought of, like how you actually feel about your own patterns, if it's something that isn't true to you, that's awesome.
Right.
It just, like, it's not like we're saying everybody has these behaviors and everyone is bad because they're playing on these behaviors. It's really a matter of like, here's something for, introspective thought, and take it or leave it. I feel like I'm kind of a take it or leave it person. Like,
Me
leave it for
too.
someone else if it's not for you, and that's
Right.
okay.
Right. And the only reason I'm sharing is because I have found this true in my own life and my
Yeah.
own lived experience, and I want to talk about it because in the case that it inspires other people. But you're right, take it or leave it. I'm not
Yeah.
here to tell you that you're codependent just because you have
I know.
endometriosis or cervical
I know.
dysplasia. That's only something you can
Yeah.
decide in yourself.
Yeah. And it's hard to get past, I mean, that said, it's hard to get past the places that we that keep us, the things that keep us in the places of not being healed or not doing the things that we need to do for ourselves. I actually posted about today, it's the first layers. Like, where's the shame that's stopping you from internalizing a message, even if it's something that's not for you? And where is, like, why are these things in place? And, why are you dealing with that cognitive dissonance? And just invite yourself to think about that, without shaming or judging yourself. Because when we put those shames and judgments all over ourselves, then we can't actually see very clearly. But that's what we're indoctrinated to be like as women. We're just supposed to be looking at everyone else's opinion. And that's who, and that must be who I am. Like, no, not necessarily.
Right. Oh, this person thinks this and wants this from me. Well, I guess that's right.
Yeah. Especially if it's a man, which many doctors are.
Or just like people of authority. A lot of them are men. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Where was I the other day? Oh, I was out in town and walking around, and like there was this like big macho man. You could tell he really thought of himself like very highly. And I said my opinion towards him, and it was just a conversation, and he literally looked at me like I was just like this little girl. He literally said, "Oh, sweetie, that's really nice of you to say," when it was actually like something counteracting to what he was saying. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Did you just really like infantilize me and call me sweetie?" Like, no. But this is what we're dealing with, these indoctrinated patterns that women are supposed to act in this way, or not have these opinions, or not have boundaries, or not speak their truth or whatnot.
Yeah, and still, even when you're speaking up for women, you get attacked.
By women.
By women, I know. And
what is up with that?
I don't know, but it's getting worse.
It is crazy. I'm like, we're like for each other, friends. Come on. Why are you trying to stop this message?
Yeah. Well, I think it's back to, them internalizing it as though it's for them.
Yeah.
I speak against birth control a lot. I will not, mince words. I am not a fan of the birth control pill or IUDs. And people will say to me, well, oh, you're not for women then, because this saves women's lives in third world countries. And my message is, well, I'm talking to the people who are injured by these things and need to hear the message that they can come off of these things. And that said, there are so many reasons why we should be investing in alternative birth control methods for women in third world countries. There's like, why aren't we talking about that? Because there are so many, I mean, whatever happened to the male birth control pill?
Right.
Why are we not asking these questions? And why are we cutting women off from their bodies? I remember once they said something to the effect of like, birth control cuts us off from what makes us women, which is biologically true. That cyclical balance that we have of hormones every month, that is what makes you partially biologically in sync with what makes you female, right? And it got so twisted and torn up, and people were like, I think someone said something like, how can you say that if you take birth control, you're not a woman? And I was like, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh, people read the copy.
But this is the thing, like that person was probably on birth control and feels that it's good for them. Right. And that's all power to you. I'm not speaking to you then.
Right.
Like if that's what empowers you, which I question, because otherwise why would they get inflammatory about it, right? If that's what empowers you, then why would you take my message in any way that doesn't empower you?
Yeah, why can't it just be water off the back, you know?
Right, exactly. And it would be if it were truly a message that we're not for them. So,
Right. Wow.
mhm.
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary to me how staunch some women are in supporting these things that are actually very harmful to the physical body. Like, yes,
Mhm.
hormonal birth control has been wonderful to give women the freedom to not have to have like 7, 8, 9 children, because
Yeah.
it's like that's a real thing, women not needing to just be baby makers for 25 years when they, got as soon as they got married or whatnot. I'm just thinking of like, my great grandmother had like 12 children, so, and there was
Yeah.
no birth control. And nobody is talking about the fact that there's been no longitudinal studies on these things, that it's still, they're just kind of playing around with the recipe, and like new forms come out and they have no idea what this is actually doing long term to female bodies.
Mhm.
Like, they don't at all.
And then you see articles that are like, oh, how interesting that we're seeing women are infertile. I wonder why. Oh,
Right.
maybe because we're putting them on for birth control for 20 fucking years.
Right. Right.
And we're not even studying that. Like, we're just like, oh no, it's reversible. That's so questionable and so weird. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Well,
not.
it's trying to put the female body into like this linear mindset of like, oh, we'll just stop this cycle for a little bit, and then we'll just like remove the barrier, and then it will be okay again. When
Right.
that's actually not how it works.
Not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Western medicine. I've been struggling against the idea of like, is this intentional? Like, is there actually like a nefariousness to this? Or do they actually think like, when I say they, I'm thinking about like the whole system, not like the individual doctors. Like, do they really think that they're helping women or helping female bodied people? And like, I don't know.
I don't.
I've,
It's so hard because you don't want to slip into conspiracy theory land and be like,
right,
everyone's against us and everyone wants to hurt us. But I
right.
think my assumption, this is, I think that it's just a general disregard for women's
Mm,
bodies. And also, there was never and still really isn't that much attention given to cyclical hormonal behavior in terms of studies. Like, we
right.
don't actually take into account women's, like, where they are on their in their cycle. And when we're doing studies on them for anything else,
Mm,
we're just treating them as though their bodies operate like men's bodies, and
right.
women's bodies don't operate like men's bodies. It's just like something that we're just totally disregarding. And so I think that general disregard has been passed down for the generations of medical students. I still know people coming out of medical school who are just, they don't consider these things. And so
Mm,
something is missing. There's something missing in terms of how we're educating medical practitioners of
yeah.
how to treat women's bodies. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a conspiracy, probably not, but
Yeah,
I think
maybe
it's a
it's just
social thing.
an unawareness. Yeah, I heard someone say that actually allopathy is the medicine of dead people, because the entire foundation of allopathic medicine was founded upon cadaver work. They didn't ever do any like all these procedures, all these like, it's all done on dead human bodies, and so there's no way, and especially for the female body, there's no way to take into consideration the cyclical
No.
nature at all, let alone like just a living human body. But I thought that was an interesting thing. Like, wow, okay, all of like the foundation of Western medicine is based upon studying dead people.
Well, yeah, and if you look at a cadaver, feel like you're looking at a machine.
Mhm.
And we're not machines.
Right,
And that's something that is also really hard for us to internalize after being indoctrinated so many years into the Western medical system.
right.
But it's just something that's hard to get into your brain. Like, oh, okay, so all of it comes together, all of the patterns of behavior, all of the nutrition, all of the exercise that you did 10 years before, and now that you're doing 10 years now, like, everything comes together to create the system that you are. But what we still do is we look at our bodies like they're machines that just need one little piece fixed, which I'm sure
Right.
you know a lot about, because being that the cervix is something that they kind of quote fix with these procedures.
Yeah, well, they like to say that the cervix has no feeling. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who is saying that the cervix has no sensation? Anyway, continue. You were saying something.
I don't know what I was saying.
Oh, okay.
I think I was done. But yeah,
Oh,
it's just
okay.
like,
Yeah.
when we treat the body like machines,
Yes.
not, if you look at a cadaver, it looks like a machine. But if
Mm-hmm.
you look at a human body, the way that our bodies actually flow through the day, we actually have motility to every single one of our organs. Every one of your organs has something like a heartbeat to it. It's got motility. And it
I
rocks
love
back
that.
and forth, and it's actually moving. Everything is moving, and everything moves in
Wow.
sync with each other. So there is a rhythm to your body that you can't see when you're looking at a dead body. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Yeah, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, is so amazing. I always like try to steer my clients, be like, have you checked out traditional Chinese medicine or even like Ayurveda or just like
Yeah.
other
Anything else?
systems besides allopathy? Yeah.
Yeah, anything
Oh,
else. Yeah,
hmm.
it's interesting. I really appreciate my acupuncture background, because it
Yeah.
made me realize, like, oh, okay. In Chinese medicine too, in ancient Chinese medicine, they talk about the points. If you look at the acupuncture points, they have them labeled like the stream and the sea and the river.
Mm,
And because the closer you get to the end of your fingers or toes, those are the more shallow pools of water. And then once you go deeper, you get into rivers, streams and rivers and oceans.
wow.
And it's just, that's how they viewed the amount of chi capacity that we have in our bodies from here all the way in. And it's
Wow.
just a beautiful system, because it just reminds me that, we could have an imbalance but still be functioning. And also that imbalance can grow to be something totally different, or it can, I don't know, I can't even explain it.
But
It's just,
that's that. I love that. That's so beautiful. Like that is a beautiful way to think about the human body.
yeah.
Like wow, I wish a lot of things, but I wish that we would be that's one of the things that we could bring to children,
I
especially if,
know.
especially young girls,
I
it's
know.
wow.
I know. I want
I'm
to
oh go
create
ahead.
some sort of outreach for younger women at some point.
Mm,
Trying to figure out how to do that.
I know there's so many things. There's so many things with women's health and young girls' health and pelvic health. I feel like there's like some of us who are doing this work and we've made it our life's work. We just like see these glaring lights like, oh my gosh, it has to change. This is so bad. This is so bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but we just keep talking.
yeah. Just keep spreading the message. Well, God
Best
bless
we've
the
got.
internet. Yeah.
Yeah, right? I mean, at least we have that until they shut that down. Talking about conspiracy theories.
Oh goodness. I don't
Censorship.
know. Right. Well, I don't. Talking about the power of the female body isn't. I'm going to say is not a conspiracy.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So a question came up to me while you were talking about like the streams and the rivers and the way
Yeah.
TCM thinks of, or yeah, ancient Chinese medicine thinks about the body. What does TCM think about like pelvic health conditions? I've never asked this question even to my acupuncturist. Like, what comes up in your mind as a practitioner when, say, someone comes with anything having to do with the female pelvis?
Well, so my brain instantly mashes everything I know about the pelvic work I do into my acupuncture brain. But when it comes to TCM in particular, women's health, I think they used to call it, I know that I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's something like the golden lotus or something like that. Like there was a real reverence for women's health. And in this ancient medicine, the idea was that if a woman's body and reproductive organs were not balanced, then the family wasn't balanced. And if the family's not balanced, the community is not balanced. So there was a form, no matter how no matter the fact that patriarchy was still in place in ancient China, there's probably, I believe, according to some of the things that I've read, there was a little bit more of a reverence for women's health being what perpetuates a healthy family and a healthy society. So that's one thing. When it comes to specifics, I actually remember learning things in acupuncture school that now I think maybe were more incorrect. Like, for instance, one of my professors said something around the lines of, endometriosis in Chinese medicine is a retrograde menstruation, which is proven, at least in Western medicine, to not be true. And so they say, like, don't have sex during your period and you won't get endometriosis. And that was coming from my old Chinese medical practitioner professor. And at the time I was like, okay, so maybe that's just like an ancient philosophy thing. And now I look at it and I'm like, no, that's still just a misinformed opinion. So it really just depends on what you're speaking of. If you're talking about how Chinese medicine looks at women's health as a whole, or if you're looking at it in terms of what people are learning today in school. Because today in school, a lot of what us as acupuncturists we learn things that are kind of created in a Western medical model. Like the way I was taught, it was very Westernized.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of depends on, yeah. But the lotus.
Yeah, I
like
really
that.
love that. That really, how like a healthy pelvis in the matriarch of the family leads to a healthy family, leading to a healthy society. That really, that rings very true for me, and what I have come to know about like the energy flow of the pelvis within the female. I haven't seen this written anywhere. This is just something that I have come to determine within myself, but we have like a centripetal force, which like draws things up and into us. I mean, hence like drawing the phallus into the vaginal canal for conception. But that the reason why so many families center around like the head woman, like the matriarch, is because of this like healthy centripetal flow of like magnetizing the community together. And once that matriarch dies, there tends to be like a dissolution of the family, or they like break up into their own little family units centered around the new matriarchs. So that was just that's just you sharing that just kind of like put some like confirmed to me like, oh, this understanding of this centripetal force in the, I think of it in the cervix being like a torus, and like the energy of the torus just spinning and drawing stuff into our pelvis, and it creating like the hub for the family. Anyway, that was kind of off topic, and just wanted to
well, I mean no, I'm a Taurus too, so I love that you're bringing up the Taurus stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm a sun sign Taurus.
Oh, nice.
No, but if you think about it too, in the terms of how being healthy in your womb would create a healthy society. So based on the idea that if we don't have that force, that cyclical force coming and going inside of our bodies, and if we cut it off with things like birth control, and if we cut it off with things like living in a linear direction in the way that men have told us that we need to live, then we end up not actually creating a community that is healthy. Like we're not the center of the community, and then we end up kind of feeling lost and latching onto things that make us feel like we're at home, and that we're actually giving our energy to something that is beneficial for us. And so, and I do this kind of clawing motion because it feels like that too when you are lost, when you are having pelvic issues, when things are just they're out of place, out of balance, and there's nothing that you can seem to do to be in control of it. There's this grasping for control, and then we end up grasping at control mechanisms that are put in place by a system that's not meant to benefit us. So when we don't have that cyclical existence and we're not giving back to society, and we're not giving back to our families. I mean, we don't have to be a huge matriarch, but we can use that energy to bring in and to pull out, to push out and give back to society and give back to other women. Then we're not actually creating a healthy society, and we don't have a healthy society. So this makes sense to me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that outward push flow is equally as important as the drawing in. And part of my work with the cervix and cervical dysplasia is looking at like at what has been wanting to be birthed through you, like what is wanting to come through your cervix to be a benefit of society, of your family, of your community, whatever. Because that energy is within you. It's wanting to be birthed through. It's wanting to come out. But because for whatever reason, you're scared, you're blocked, your energy is being cycled somewhere else.
We hold.
We hold. Yeah,
things.
holding on to it. That energy becomes corrosive and putrid, and like it starts to seep out of the cervix in this like really unhealthy way and creating dysplasia.
BV.
Yeah, BV. Yeah. Or or just like chronic pelvic pain, intravaginal pain, whatnot.
Yeah, I think the majority, and even like with women who are postpartum, the majority of women in general that I see with pelvic issues have pelvic congestion, where if once I get my finger in, it's really hard to move it around because there's so much coming in and you know, blocking movement from happening, and then we slowly have to go into that tissue and allow the things to come up and out. We have to allow our emotions that we're storing there, our memories that we're storing there, the things we didn't forgive other people for, the things we're not forgiving ourselves for, and those things have to come up and out. And that's why it's a process, and that's why I see people for so long, and it takes them a while to get through these things and to actually learn the lessons. And it's really not, when I say holding, it's not like we need to release, like get rid of, we need to integrate.
Yeah.
Like we need to integrate, learn our lessons, and then we won't be holding anymore. And that's the thing.
Yeah. Do you support like personal intravaginal acupressure? Because that's something that I do actually with I haven't gone and seen like a professional, but I have worked with my pelvic floor and vaginal canal and cervix with like touching and holding and breathing and with my hand or with a wand or whatnot. But I just want to know your opinion about that.
Yeah, I do online sessions. I'll have people have their own yoni wand and, or, you know, even just use a finger. Actually, right now I'm doing the pelvic reset course and teaching a bit of that. It's actually more oriented towards feeling pleasure and internalizing pleasure in order to process some of these things. But there's also a little bit that I touch on doing your own internal release, because doing your own internal release can be really helpful, but it's kind of hard for people to do if they have pain and they anticipate pain. Because if I have my hands there and I'm the one who's guiding people through the process, then they're not as anticipatory with themselves. They kind of don't trust that they can actually hold something that feels uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, so it's not the same to do it yourself, but it is definitely, if you have the wherewithal to stay present to your sensation and stay present to what comes up for you, then yeah. And I do it on myself all the time. I take yoni wand and I'll like press into some pressure points and cry, and you know, and then I feel better. Not crying from pain, but crying from emotion.
Right. Release. Oh yeah. That's just, it's a practice that I have done that's been very powerful. So I just wanted to, you're a person who does it professionally on others. And so I just wanted to know.
Yeah. Well, and I've had people online who will come and, you know, they'll we'll do it on Zoom, and I won't look, you know, they'll just turn the camera off. We turn cameras off and I talk them through it. And they'll just stay vocal about what's coming up. And that's always helpful too. Just having a facilitated experience is nice because it keeps you centered to what you need to be centered to. But totally able to do it yourself. Yeah.
Totally. Wow. Yeah, it's a reminder that I want to do that more.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm gonna do it.
Wow, we've already been talking for an hour. This is amazing. I wanted to let the listeners know that this practice of whether you see a professional like Maggie or do it yourself, it's been really helpful for me to release stress with the whole COVID-19 experience.
Yes.
I realized that my whole pelvic floor, like my vaginal canal, like just has been so tight, just like not wanting to let it in.
Yes. Maybe I'll do a session where I'll just like invite like a free one and invite everyone to come and turn off their cameras and do it themselves. Sounds nice.
Powerful. That does sound nice.
Sound nice.
De-stress.
Thank you for coming and talking to me. And we talked about so many different things, but we can always elaborate on those things later.
Well, we should do it again. I feel like we could talk for hours.
I think we could. In circles. The way women do. That's another reason why I was like, I don't want to do this podcast as a linear system, because we're not linear people. We always talk in circles. We are cyclical.
Yes. And we kept on coming back to codependency. So
yes, we did. At least we did that.
Yes, we did. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.